What is up, movie fans? I have been just atrociously bad at posting new videos on the account, and so sorry for that. My team and I were traveling on a handful of video and commercial productions, so just now getting caught up on updating new movie reviews, new trailer recaps, and creative breakdowns, as well as some ranking videos. So I know Final Deadlines, Final Destination Bloodlines is dropping in theaters, and I had just recently watched the first 5 in this series, so thought we would do a ranking of those first 5. As with all the rankings, we put it on a scale. And for these in particular, we were looking at the storyline, the characters, how scary was the movie, the kills and effects in the film, how original was it, how fun was it, was there a final girl or final boy, and how good was that character, the film quality itself, as well as the antagonist. In this case, the antagonist being the Grim Reaper, Death himself, and the how good Death was in each of these films. So 10 categories that we're using for this. If you're new to the channel, definitely hit the subscribe button, turn the notifications on so you can be notified when we do get new content out there. So let's dive in. The first 5 films in the Final Destination franchise, and we start at the bottom because we always go from the worst to the best. And the absolute worst is the Final Destination, which is the 4th installment in this series. This was so quickly and cheaply made, or at least it really felt that way. It had a very shoehorned 3D gimmick to it, but the effects and the graphics themselves felt very made for TV and very sci-fi channel esque. This did not feel like a theatrical release. This was very boring. The script was bad. The characters were really, really awful, hard to get into. There's nothing memorable about this movie. Even though it was a couple weeks ago that I watched all these films, this is the one I can't tell you one thing that happened. I had to look back at my notes and be like, oh yeah, I guess there was an escalator scene. But I literally wrote, was this the best kill? I guess, question mark. It was a very boring, uninspired, uninteresting film, and really, really would skip this one. It doesn't support the series at all. All right, moving up a little better, but still not that much better. Actually, I let me take that back. My scoring on the 4th installment was so bad. I think I gave it a 4%. So Final Destination 2, which is in the 4th spot, it did get quite a big jump up from there, but it's still not a good movie. This is still a rough follow-up from the original film. It opens with a very awkward, very laborious, over exposition that is trying to define the world that we are trying to be in. The characters are very cliche and annoying, and this is increasingly frustrating because of how good and how memorable the first installment was when it came to character development. On the plus side, the car crash in that scene was so good. I mean, there's that meme, of the truck with all the logs. If you've seen this, you know, yeah, if this brings trauma, then you're of a certain age demographic because you saw Final Destination 2. They took Evans or Devon Sawa out of the franchise with an off-screen death, that he was killed by a falling brick. Really, that just seemed insulting. The whole movie just had so much exposition, really bad characters. They also try to shoehorn in more of a mythology of, well, if you bring, if there's a birth, if there's new life, then death will pass you over. Do we need this? I don't think we do. It was very uninteresting, but there it is at the 4th spot. So now we're starting to get maybe a little bit better, which is Final Destination 3. The original director, the director of the first Final Destination, returned to direct part 3, which sounds good. And there were certain areas that you could tell they spent more time on. Like, they spent more time trying to craft some more nuanced characters than they did in part 2. And I guess you could attribute that to the director. But what really, really hampered this film was the roller coaster, this is the crux of the film, is this big roller coaster scene. It just felt bad. It just looked bad. It didn't look good. And then the kind of mystery that we're unfolding throughout it is being done through photographs, which are really annoying and kind of cheesy. And it's just not, once again, this is not great writing, and it's not creating an interesting movie. And it's really, we're struggling to get into it, and all the scenes between the death scenes just feel very laborious. We just keep waiting for the next death scene. We're not packing a great film here, but it was better than part two, and absolutely better than the Final Destination was the fourth installment. And now we're moving up to the second spot. And back to back, we have two pretty good movies here, at part two and part one, or excuse me, at second place and first place. In second place, we have Final Destination 5, which was really surprising how good it was. One, it had the best kills in the series. It was the most fun out of any of the movies since the original. It had the best characters out of any of the films. It spent the most time on actually getting you to know the characters, that the other films, kind of glossed over. It had this phenomenal tie-in to the first film that nobody saw coming, which, to be able to do that and not telegraph it the entire time, like it's just in the last scene, to not have to keep audiences not expecting that and really shock them and subvert expectations at the end, was so beautifully done. The only bad thing I can say is the CGI wasn't great in this, and they tried to once again play with the mythology of how they escape death. And I think there was like, if you kill someone, you can live. We don't need this. This isn't helping the storyline or the script. I know on the sixth one that they're coming out with, all of a sudden, and it has to do with the family and the bloodlines, and I don't know if that's necessary either. In fact, I do know it's not. It's not necessary. We don't need that. But that being said, this is a really fun movie. It holds up. Best kills, some of the best kills in this series. No, the best kills in the series, best characters in the series by far. And that the gymnastics scene alone is just so tense. So there it is. At number 2 is Final Destination 5, which of course leaves us with Final Destination from 2000 in the number 1 spot, the best of the franchise thus far. Although, Death Played by Wind was my first note in this, which I thought was kind of funny. What was so fascinating about this movie is, one, it was highly original, but it turned what was mundane into macabre, and I thought that was so well done in the original. It was a masterclass in tension, creating these Rube Goldbergs of death traps for all the characters. Tony Todd was absolutely brilliant in this, and they even, did interesting things that I was curious about. Like, for example, in the teacher's house scene, they changed the frame rate at one point, and as far as I could tell, that was the only point in the movie that they changed frame rates. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Why didn't they do that more often? That would have been a clever ploy to illustrate to the audience that something is amiss, that something is going to be happening here. The characters were really good in this movie, second best characters in the franchise, next to part 5. The ending, though, felt a little cheap, where they flash forward 6 months in time and all of a sudden they're all in Paris together. That felt like a reshoot add-on. That didn't really feel like it belonged canonically in this film. But this was, on its base, a very original movie, which, was refreshing. And is refreshing to this day. This movie holds up. It holds up really, really well. It is still a lot of fun to watch. Yes, it is still very trenched in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like I said, it came out in 2000, so it was right on that cusp right there. But this is such a fun movie. It absolutely holds up. Number 1 in this franchise. I cannot fathom Bloodlines coming anywhere near this. We'll see. I'll check out Bloodlines. I'll let you know where it slots into this franchise ranking list. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, are there any other franchises you want me to check out next? Let me know. We'll do a ranking video on those. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the subscriptions, for the comments, for sharing this show with a friend. Catch you on the next screening. Take care, everyone.